Well, welcome back to our study titled The Faith Walk. And today we enter into part 11 of our 12-part series. And we're going to be looking at the next few verses in James chapter 5. And we're going to be looking at verses 7 through 12. And you might remember from our last study that James was addressing those rich believers, those stingy believers, those selfish believers, those people that would hoard their resources and not help those people that were really in need. He was talking to those that would go on and take advantage of other people. And now we come to a place where right after that, James is talking to those believers that are being hurt. He's talking to those believers that are being persecuted, to those that are being taken advantage of. Remember, James is writing this entire letter to a group of early believers that they're being persecuted, they're being chased, they're being run down, they're being cast out of their homes, and they're finding themselves in places where they are hurting because of their faith, because of their belief in the Lord. And so now James is talking directly to those people, to the opposite people that he was at the beginning of our chapter. And the first thing he tells them is something that many of us do not want to hear. It's something that many of us hate being told because it goes completely against our nature, especially whenever we're having to go through a very hard time in our lives. The very first thing that he tells them is something that we do not like hearing. And so we'll open up today and we'll look at James chapter 5. And as we begin to read verses 7 and 8, it says this. And the very first two words there, again, are two words that we often do not like to hear. It says, "Be patient. Be patient, therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord. Behold, the husbandman waiteth for the precious fruit of the earth, and hath long patience for it, until he receive the early and latter rain. Be ye also patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord draweth nigh." James is telling us, be patient. He's telling these early believers, you're going through hard times. You're enduring some testing. You're enduring some things that I know are tough. I know are rough. I know are hard. But be patient. Be patient because the end is in sight. There are good things that are coming. The Lord is coming back, and we've just got to make it through. We've just got to endure these hard times, this rough patch in your life. The things aren't always going to go your way. Things aren't always going to be easy. And I know that sometimes it gets so hard that we can't see over the next hill or the next obstacle or the next trial in our way. But he says, be patient. Just hold on a little bit longer. Just hold on. Just be patient. And as we look into verse 9, it says, "Grudge not one against another, brethren, lest ye be condemned. Behold, the judge standeth before the door." What happens many times when we find ourselves in a state where we're just frazzled and we're upset and we're scared and we're having a tough time and we're hurting? Well, what do? We often lash out at those people around us. We usually allow our situation to control our attitude. And that's what James is cautioning these believers against here. He says, I know that you're going through a hard time. I know this. But don't allow your situation, don't allow your attitude to be changed and influenced by your situation. He says, be patient. Please just be hopeful. And you know what? He also says, be ready. Be ready, because the end is in sight. The finish line is just ahead. The final days are coming, where you won't have to go through this testing. You won't have to go through this trying. You won't have to go through all of the hardships that you've been enduring. Just hold on a little bit longer. Just be patient. I promise you it will get better. That's what James is saying here. He's being an encourager to his fellow believers, and he's telling them, just be patient. The end is in sight. It will get better for you. And as we go into verse 10 and look also at verse 11, it says, take my brethren, the prophets, who have spoken in the name of the Lord, for an example of suffering, affliction, and of patience. Behold, we count them happy which endure. Remember, we talked about that earlier in our study of James. Being happy when we're being tried, when we're being tested. And here he says again, behold, we count them happy which endure. Ye have heard of the patience of who? Of Job. And have seen the end of the Lord, that the Lord is very pitiful and of tender mercy. He uses an example of a man that endured so much more than many of us and many of these believers that are going through hard times, even more than they had to endure. A man named Job, and we know that he suffered all types of testing and trying and hardship because the Lord allowed the enemy to test his faith, because he knew that Job would stand firm, that Job would be an example for other believers to come. And there are others, many other prophets and early Christian believers that we could look to and that James is pointing to here. And he's saying, look, I know your situation is rough. I know you're going through a hard time. I know that you're having trouble enduring this portion of your life. But look to those examples, those fine examples that we have in the faith. Examples of people who did endure. Examples of people who did hold on, even when it looked like they couldn't endure or hold on any longer. And yet they did. Look to them. Let them be a beacon of light that you see and you say, wow, I can do it because they did it. I can persevere because they persevered. I know I can do this. James is telling them. He says, just hold on. I know that we have these examples of courage, these examples of endurance within our faith. And if we'll just look to them, if we'll just endure the current hardships that we're in, if we'll just, be steady, then we can make it. We can get through this place in our life. We can endure. We can endure the hardship, and we can persevere. We can make it. And you know what? In the process of this hardship, we can even find the ability to be happy, because we know, like he said, we've got these examples. These other examples that have gone before us that we've been able to witness through the Word, and being able to witness even through those Christian examples around us that we look to and we say, wow, they're going through a hard time, but they've made it through. I know that then I can do it also. I can be steady like a rock planted and growing on a good firm foundation. My foundation is on Christ, and He remains steady and steadfast. And I too can do that even though I'm going through persecution, because my Lord, He did the same. He went through persecution for me, and so being that He remained steadfast in His call to duty, if you will, I can do the same thing and stay steadfast and steady in my own call. My call to be a good, firm, steady foundation, a good, firm, steady example to others even of how that I am enduring the hardships that I'm going through right now. And then he finishes it up, our study of today, in verse 12. And now this verse 12, you might look at it and say, well, that probably doesn't fit right here with the rest of what we're talking about. It's kind of strange in its placing, but not really. Not really if you look at it, because again, well, as we'll see, verse 12 says this. It says, "But above all things, my brethren, swear not, neither by heaven, neither by earth, neither by any other oath. But let your yea be yea, and your nay, nay, lest ye fall into condemnation." He says, let your yes be yes. Let your no be no. Basically, let your word be your word. And if you say you're a believer, then be a believer. Act out your actions. Use your words in the way that a believer should. I say it does fit here. I say it does fit here because, again, what happens when we get upset, when we get frustrated at our situation or maybe the things that we're going through, and well, we allow that to leach out into our relationships, into our conversations with other people, and that can get us into trouble because you might say things that normally you would not say. You might strike out and swear against something. You know, when you're going through a hard time, many people they say things like, "Oh my God, why am I in this situation?" And here James is saying, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't swear against heaven. Don't swear against the Lord. You know what? Just let your words stand. Just you be someone who is steady as a rock and isn't saying things and doing things that you know you shouldn't be doing. Let your word mean something. Let your stance as a believer mean something. And don't turn your frustrations and your anger about your situation towards the Lord or towards anyone else. Don't curse anyone else. But above all, don't curse the Lord. Whatever you've got to say, just say it and let it be your words. Don't rest it on the Lord. Don't rest your frustrations and your angers upon the Lord. Let what you say be what you say, not anything else. I say it fits here because James is giving us an example, giving these early believers an example of how that they can endure the trying and the hardships and endure those with patience and be happy about their situation even though their current situation is not one that they really want to be in. And he says, just endure. Just be patient. And in that patience, do the right thing. Again, we go back to this like at the end of chapter 4. Just do the right thing. And you know that the right thing is not to blame God, not to curse God, not to use God's name in vain or in any aspect of ill. He says, do the right thing. Do the right thing. And you know, as we are learning to walk closer to the Lord, as we're learning through the wording and the encouragement of James to grow in our faith, grow in our walk with Christ, we have to begin to take it for more than just words in our Bible. And we have to begin to apply these words to action that we live out in our life. And today that word, that lesson that we should pull from James would be, look, you're going through hard times, but have faith. You're going through trying times, you're enduring persecution possibly, but have faith. Have faith, have hope, and grow more in your walk with the Lord. Learn to rest more on Him than you do on yourself. Learn to endure through patience and grow in your faith in Christ.